Now it is the Monaghan Way with myself, Sean McCaffrey, and of course association with Northern Sound here. It's episode 41, and what an episode in fairness. We thought 40 we could do something special, but it's taken to 41, and what a special one it is. We're going to be looking back, obviously, on what occurred and what happened in the athletic grounds, the Boxed athletic grounds, last Saturday evening. Take a listen.
Rory Beggan plucks the ball out of sky. Beggan can give that ball. Beautiful pass into Micheál Bannigan. Goal chance for Monaghan. It's a goal. What a goal for Monaghan. Rory Beggan catches the ball from the Derry kick out, and Micheál Bannigan puts the ball in the back of the net. 1 goal and 4 for the captain. Jack McCarran, with a crowd behind him in the terrace, pops the ball. This is it for Monaghan. Wrong side of the pitch, outside of the left. This one's going over the bar.
He has it.
Jack McCarran with a 2-pointer. A 6-2-pointer for Monaghan. And Monaghan have drawn this match. Rory Beggan takes 2 steps to the right. Looks at the goals. This is 47 metres out. Dead straight in front of the Derry goals. A slight breeze at his back. Rory Beggan to win this game for Monaghan. He connects with the ball. Oh, yes! Rory Beggan! Unbelievable! Monaghan, 1 goal and 30 points. Derry 3 goals to 23. 33 points to 32. Monaghan lead. And the Hooters going to go. And Monaghan have broken Derry hard.
Hooters gone.
I love me county. Irish by birth, Monaghan by grace of God. Monaghan lead here and win this match and are in the Ulster final.
Yeah, there was plenty of other moments maybe we could have taken from that encounter, but those were maybe the 3 key moments. Of course, that goal, Rory Beggan catching the ball, feeding Micheál Bannigan back at the net. Jack McCarran is one of them moments. Where were you when that ball was sliced over on the outside of the left from what was, in fairness, the wrong side of the field for a left-sided kicker? And so then the man himself, Rory Beggan, again at the end of it there. What a colossus he was in that game, along with all the other players, the whole bench and the whole panel. And the colossus that was our match commentator, I'm delighted to say he joins me, Fergal Monaghan. He was alongside Desi Moan for that one. And Fergal, we're well into the dregs of the week after that particular encounter. We're counting down to an Ulster final, more importantly. But I still think for a day or two, I noted it's like a bottle of wine. You open it and you let it breathe. We're still breathing on this. That Boxed athletic grounds, that incredible game. And I was listening to your podcast, We Are Monaghan. Darren Hughes noted it perfectly. The game, we were defeated twice and we still won it.
Well, whatever about a bottle of wine wanting to breathe, we needed oxygen. We needed oxygen after the game, or during the game, even at times. You know, it was a funny one because, like, even when you look back and you think we were 6 points down, I think with about 5 or 6 minutes to go, and you're looking back and you're wondering how the hell did we get out of this one? But you mentioned different players there. First of all, from my point of view, and you know this, Sean, as well, what a privilege it was and is to commentate on matches and to be there and to have that, position that, to watch the games. I tell you what, I was just so delighted and so privileged, I think, to be, and I don't mean that lightly. Like, I mean, you're commentating and you're telling people about the feats of absolute heroes and doing things that are going to be spoken about for years. And you're right, we talked about it on the We Are Monaghan, and I said it was like, where were you when Kennedy was shot? Where were you when Jack McCarran scored that point outside the left, wrong side of the pitch, after the game was over and restarted? It was unheard of. And I suppose the biggest compliment you give to someone like Rory Beggan is he goes up and takes a 50-metre free, and we talk about it like it was a 13-metre free. Like, there's not many guys in the country can do that and be talked about that. And that is who Rory Beggan is. He has changed the face of goalkeeping. I actually watched, would you believe, last night, Sean, the 2013 final against Donegal. And Rory was just starting his kicking prowess there. He scored a couple of 45s that day. There was no 2-pointers. But, the lads you mentioned there, and there was so many heroes. And funny enough, the pain we went through in the league, and Gabriel Bannigan and his management team and his team with the injuries, I mentioned in a couple of interviews throughout the year that maybe this pain will ultimately create something, because we've now got a serious panel who have played at a very high level. And in one of our pods in the months gone by, Damien Donoghue mentioned how playing in Division 1 with so many blood and so many players does allow you to then be ready for Ulster Championship football, which is now the case. Like, we have so many lads who are just seamlessly fitting in there. Like, Ryan Wiley hasn't figured yet, and you have Cameron Dowd there playing, you have Dara McAlearney coming in, who's been excellent, and deservedly been hung around that panel a long time, getting his chance now. Dylan Byrne back in from injury. You mentioned Bobby McCall coming in, like he was just a colossus and adding something to our panel. And we have lads who aren't even part of it this year who have been away for various reasons. When we talked about it, we're in an Ulster final, and I always think I love that phrase from Sinatra: "Flying high in April, shot down in May." There's no football. You're one hero 1 minute, you're a villain the next. It goes up and down, peaks and troughs. It's like the drumlins of our great county. You don't know, and now suddenly we're in an Ulster final. And yes, we can enjoy this retrospective look, but I'll tell you, those lads are fully focused now on the battle ahead, and I'm fully galvanizing myself into that kind of being written off by bookies, by media, by everybody. No one's giving us a chance. I was driving through the roads of France, Sean, last in 2023 with thunderstorms, listening to yourself and Desi when Monaghan played Armagh in the quarter-final, and there were 1-5 underdogs that day as well. But we'll talk about Derry for now, but I got to say, I'm putting on the war paint again.
I can picture you coming in with the half face of white and blue, so I can, on Ulster final day. Fergal, maybe reflecting back, and you've been there, you've been on this journey, particularly this year. You've been on all the journeys of Monaghan for the past number of years. This year, you travelled the length and breadth of the country with Monaghan at the league, and there would have been despondent days. I know there was difficult days. And from the perspective even of a commentator and reporting and having to go and seek out Gabriel, and one thing I have to credit him for, he never turned away the mic. He never shied away from what was occurring, what was happening. We know it was a difficult league campaign, but it was a league campaign where he was shorn, now we know, of experience. But it was an opportunity to give experience to players. But even you, in your own honest opinion, at no point during that league, when the defeats were racking up, did you ever think we're going to be counting down now and be days out from an Ulster final appearance? Or did you? Was there at any stage when you thought, from looking in, reading the game, seeing how it progressed, and that this could possibly happen?
Well, I want to break that down. When the draw was made in the Ulster Championship, there was a realistic chance when you looked at the draw. Cavan 50-50 game, but certainly we obviously, as we showed, well able to win that one, and did. The Derry game, very winnable game, and we did it. Not by the conventional way you'd imagine, but we got through it. Which Monaghan, this was called the Monaghan Way, and Monaghan find a way, and they do. And we've done it time and time again, and that's the joy of it. But when I went through that league campaign, if you break it down, and the thing about GA analysis, it can be so simplified. You win by a point, you're brilliant. You lose by a point, you're no good. There is a lot of stuff to be unpacked in between. There were games where Monaghan played really well. They played well for 20 minutes against Mayo, a couple of bad decisions, and then the backside fell out of it. They were in the game up until 2 mistakes to give away 2 goals against Roscommon. They'd created 6, maybe 7 goal chances against Dublin, and should have won that game in Croke Park. Glimpses of very good performances. And then, of course, the Donegal performance was excellent. So, yes, the results were very bad and very painful at times, and very hard to take. But if you really unpacked it and said, geez, you know what, there is glimpses. And I did say a couple of, look, we'll be back. We will be back. People say, that's that and that's it. So the Ulster final at times in the league, we were down and because at the end of the day, yourself and myself and Desi there, who played with Monaghan for many years, and Kieran Cairns, when we have all our team who do the commentary, we love Monaghan and we're fans at heart, and we try to keep it between the ditches as best we can and tell you what's going on. But I find Desi now very optimistic, and I know the way he always looks at it in a sense of from a player's point of view, and he gives that angle, and even talking to him off air and that. I was laughing to myself yesterday. As I said, I watched the 2013 Ulster final. He must have been on definitely first name terms with the referee, David Coldry, after, because he was speaking to him and telling him what he was thinking throughout the game. But no, I did think there was an opportunity for Monaghan, but it was looking glum at times, but definitely leaving Clonus after we played Donegal, Sean. We all bounced out of it that day. We lost by 4 points, but there was something fresh. And when you talk about the league campaign, no more than the players, I always think like we're talking about, we're going to a game at the weekend, getting all our lives during the week. These guys are putting it in every night, in the dark, and the energy must have been very low at times with the results not going their way. But when you get a result, when you get a performance, we are invigorated. Look how social media lit up at the weekend. Whereas if when you lose, it's like a tumbleweed. You know, it's quiet, all quiet. So the energy was there against Donegal, and you can see then when you get a result, everybody is re-energized. But the team brought the energy to the pitch, especially against Cavan, and suddenly one win, and you're back up. And now Monaghan are up and running. And I actually think it's great that you know, they're such underdogs. I think that they will thrive on it because you know, it'll annoy them. But definitely the energy is back, and a result can do that. You've been around football a long time, Sean. You've followed Monaghan all around as well, and you will know that the energy you get from a win. It's incredible how all is forgiven after one win.
Absolutely. I love that analogy you said, win by a point, you're brilliant, lose by a point, and it could be the end of everything for you. It's an interesting one. Half time then, in the Boxwood Athletic Grounds, 9, 10, what were they down at?
10 down, 2-10 to 6 we were down.
Even at that stage, even the most hardened of Monaghan fans had to be thinking, it's going to be one of them days, even from your own perspective of sitting in the commentary box. And obviously, you're always trying to keep the positivities on things. You're always looking for where will it occur, where will it turn, what will come your way. But deep down, somewhere in your soul, you had to be thinking, we just can't see this. There was then a sort of a mini revival, then another goal from Derry. And I know even from myself, I wasn't in the athletic grounds, so it was confirmation. I was sitting at home watching it, and I despaired. That third goal, it was despair again. And it was just how the game ebbed and flowed.
Well, it was a bit like when Monaghan were playing Cavan, Monaghan were controlling the game and getting ahead. And anytime Cavan would get a point, Monaghan would go back down and score. With Derry were doing something similar to Monaghan. Monaghan would get a couple of scores, but Derry had the ability to go down and pretty much answer it immediately with their own score to keep that scoreboard ticking over. And the problem was Monaghan just could not. I suppose there was an overload in the first half. Monaghan were against the breeze in the first half, and Derry had their half back line. I'm trying to think of the man's name. It could have been, I have them up here. Conor Doherty sitting in that number 5 position, blocking off Rory Beggan's kick out to underneath me in the seated stand, the covered seated stand in the Boxwood Athletic Grounds. So he was having to kick it either down the centre or over to the terrace side. When Derry were kind of working on that, getting the breaking ball, Conor Glass was sitting deep. He was a real pain as well. He was dictating matters. And we were under serious pressure. We just couldn't get our hands on the ball. And that's one thing, you know, if Monaghan get the ball, they're a match for anyone. But if we've been starved like most teams, well, if you haven't got the ball, you can't do a whole pile. But I suppose then as the game wore on, we had the breeze in the second half. At half time, I got to say, Sean, I'm not going to lie, I was down and out of myself. I was thinking, I was scratching my head and saying, how are we going to get this? It was kind of reminiscent of the 2023 game in the Boxwood Athletic Grounds. Garrett McKinless coming from deep. Derry just kind of running through us. Niall Loughlin was getting the end of moves that were on the overlap for goals. Couldn't see it. I couldn't see where we were going to get this. But Gabriel, in his interview after, said no. You know, he was more annoyed that they just didn't play, and he knew if they showed something. And particularly, he mentioned the 2-pointers. You were 10 points down, but that's really 4 points, 5 points now. You know, and obviously we had 8 2-pointers, they had 1, and we have like if you go to boxing, we have a puncher's chance in every game because we have shooters, we have 2-pointers. And that's a real headache for other teams. And we weren't getting those 2-pointers in the league. We got 8 2-pointers on Saturday evening.
It was interesting just around the 2-pointers, Fergal. And I'm sure maybe when you were watching the game and commentating on it, you possibly picked up on this. Derry did go for 2-pointers. Monaghan sort of gifted. They afforded Derry the opportunity to go for 2-pointers, and they kicked some poor wides in that first. I think there's something like 12 wides, 11 wides in the first half. That seemed to dent the confidence of Derry, that in the second half they felt the need maybe to have to go in that bit closer to try and get scores. It was like a trap Monaghan set. They forced the turnover. But on the flip side of that, as you said then, Monaghan did have the capability of going for the 2-pointers. Obviously, we had Conor McCarthy with one. Neil McCarville kicked one, and directly after it, then Andrew Woods kicked one as well. A fantastic effort that he kicked as well. You had Desi Ward that was fit to kick him, and you have Rory Beggan that was able to take them that as well. And that, obviously, we know that was the big key factor in the end. Jack McCarran, we can't forget about his 2-pointer also as well. But that seemed to be the thing, is that Derry, as much as they have a threat on the score in front, Monaghan seemed to dent their confidence of taking long distance efforts and forced them to have to come in a bit closer, and then were able to turn them over, where on the opposite side, Derry just couldn't deal with Monaghan and their 2-point threat.
Yeah, and when Monaghan got Bobby McCall in the second half, two things happened. They had a strong breeze at their back, and Bobby McCall then went into that full forward line. It forced Conor Glass to step back towards that halfback to kind of be almost like a sweeper. He was taken out of that midfield area. Monaghan then got their hands on the ball, got their running game going, got guys that you talked about into position. Like said, Conor McCarthy being on the pitch was massive. His leadership, his decision making was massive. He won a ball in the corner with about 50 seconds to go to engineer free for himself. He soloed and goal, and we got that ball up to the 47, 48 metre area, and of course the rest is history. Rory Beggan did the rest. So, but the idea that that outlet as an extra man, that we could then, if we did get the ball, kick it, but it meant that Derry had another question to answer, and it allowed our shooters then to get into that position, and then with the breeze at their back, they use it to full advantage. I think Emilio McCarville has chipped in with 2-pointers throughout the league and championship, and his high fielding, Carl Gallagher's high fielding, Andrew Woods' high fielding, Stephen O'Hanlon ran tirelessly. He when we were under the cosh, he went short for a few kickouts, and we got that. We didn't get as many as we needed, but at times we did such good work to get our hands on it. But the other thing about it was, I was thinking, like, Stephen O'Hanlon as well, just a tireless runner. But that idea that Bobby McCall, he's a big ace in the pack for us. He's such a big unit. And he's only coming back for injuries. He's a young fella, so he can go midfield as well. But that was a question that kind of put Derry on the back foot. Gave them another. I compared Monaghan to like a wasp around a jam jar for Derry. They just couldn't shake them. They were just that pesky kind of annoying. No matter what Derry would do, they were still within range. But then again, it was 12 points in it, and 12 points, like, I mean, that was a big gap at some point in the second half. And look, even the most optimistic, I was thinking I couldn't see it. And I read somewhere that at 6 minutes to go, I think Monaghan were still down by 6 points with 6 minutes to go or something like that. So even when you watch it back, remember when we watched back the 2005 league final when Paul Findlay put that ball in and went into the back of the net, even as you're watching that back, you're thinking, how the hell did we get out of this one? But we did. And we did on Saturday night as well.
We did indeed. There's been a lot of, I suppose, with the rules when they come in, they're not new rules anymore. We're well sorted and well into them at this stage. Maybe the slight change in the rule in regards to the hooter. I'll get to that in a second or so. But there's been a lot of positives, and then maybe equally a lot of criticism in regards to the 2-pointers in particular, and that some teams are able to utilise them better than others. But as you said, if you have that in your arsenal, that's what you do. If you have that to your advantage, that's what you do. It's no different if you have a big, tall, full forward, you make use of him. If you have two big lads around the middle of the field, that's to your advantage. So if you have the ability to be able to take on these 2-pointers, why not? If you have the players that have the capability of doing it, why not? Because they are definitely changing the course of games. And I heard Gabriel speaking to you after the game. He says, like, 10 points is not insurmountable. It's the similar as being down 5 points when you think of it. And so it is.
Well, look, I mean, the thing about it is with the 2-pointers, I think, like, if you have the people used to argue that Barcelona were no good without Messi. I mean, it's the same thing. You play to your strengths. Monaghan have 2-point shooters. Armagh have guys you can run in behind and fist the ball over the bar. Kerry have David Clifford. Well, this is it's horses for courses. You play to your strengths. And like sometimes to go over, like, there's nothing to say Monaghan will score all those 2-pointers the next day. Like, I mean, so the rules are there. I do think, though, let's enjoy the rules as they are, agree or disagree, whether you don't like fisted points, you don't like 2-pointers. The game is the game. The GAA has tweaked rules time and time again. I don't think there's any other sport in the world have adjusted and tweaked their rules like the GAA have. I think it's now time to leave the game and let young players develop on the current rules, constantly change and constantly chopping. We have a good product at the minute. Yes, it's not perfect. But give me a game or give me a sport that is perfect. But I'll tell you one thing, as regards entertainment, we got as close to perfection as you can on Saturday evening at the Box Athletic Grounds.
We did indeed. One of those little tweaks was the hooter. It was introduced and had been in full use, in fairness, for the majority of all the league games, Division 1 league games this year. I have to say, I love the hooter because it gives a finality to the game, I think, which is good. You're not depending on fourth officials and time is left and discretion of referees and all that. So at least the hooter ends it. But where the little bit of confusion arose was that slight little tweak. It used to be that when the hooter went, if the ball was still in play, you allowed it to play out and whatever happened. Monaghan against Donegal in the Ulster Championship back a number of years ago got caught, sideline ball. The argument being that they had quite literally got the ball back into play when the hooter had went. The flip side of the argument was no, the ball was dead and Monaghan were trying to work a two-pointer. Interestingly enough, and when you look back on it, Rory and Jack have a discussion. They deliberately didn't take the sideline ball because if they had to kick that ball in, there would have been pressure on to try and get that effort away to make sure the ball was in flight for a two-pointer. They knew, set piece, we have a chance here to go for this two-pointer. And you can sympathise, I think, to an extent with Noel Mooney, the referee, that just in that moment, that little tweak, that little change in the rule maybe had been forgotten. And it took a combination of Rory maybe and David to maybe just remind him of it. And he immediately turned. And again, I was listening, you were there live in the moment and you made a very good point that he made the decision very, very quickly, because if Derry had got off that field, if the referee had got off that field, you would have been in a bigger mess in regards to how that game could have ended.
I think it was at 97 or 98, Offaly sat on the field after the Clare hurling.
And actually sit on the field, Fergal? Were you prepared to sit on the field?
I usually sit on the fence, but I would have sat on the field this time. But no, it was very, what you say there. You're talking about fourth officials. I know Davy Garland and Rory Beggan, fifth and sixth officials, but they got the message through to Noel Mooney. I want to say something about Noel Mooney as well, the referee. I think he did. We were all confused about the rule when he got the word in his ear from a combination of his team of officials, Davy Garland, who knows the rules, he does refereeing, and Rory Beggan, who knows the rules. He corrected his decision as quickly as he could, and I think that's a great mark of the man. I think, I'm not saying that some referees would just stick by their decision, but he did it quickly. We got about 100 kids from Derry who were on the field. We got them off the field, and Derry were still on the pitch. I think it could have been an absolute chaos, but it wasn't averted. But the temperament of Jack McCarron to hold on for that 4 or 5 minutes before he could actually get the free taken or the sideline ball taken. And Rory Beggan stood. He was making sure that there was nobody coming to interfere with him. There was nobody, no Marish offering Jack a bit of water from distance or anything like that. And, obviously it was just an immaculate. We'll talk about the kick, but the whole circumstances was chaotic. I wasn't sure. At the time, there was 7 seconds on the clock when it stopped. The clock started again and Jack was just standing on the sideline with the ball in his hand. And we were kind of saying, Hootergate with Donegal and Ulster the year before, as we say, the rules were slightly changed after that. But we got to the right decision in the end. And maybe now we're clear on it. And this is the thing about, I don't want to get bogged down on the anorak of rules and stuff like that, but, all these rules, and it's very confusing at times in the GAA. You have to nearly be a professor of the game to know it all. But look, we got the right decision. I'm delighted for it because one of the most iconic moments of the GAA happened then at about, what time was it? 5, maybe about, I suppose about 6:15, 20 past 6 on a Saturday evening in Armagh. And that kick is iconic. It will be on highlight reels for years to come, not for just for Monaghan people, but for the GAA in general, because it was a work of art. And I was looking at it back. I think it was Caelan Hughes, Paddy Hughes' son, recorded it, and when it blew up the internet. Good Ty Holland man, and Who Good Day Holland Men, and I was looking at it, and it looked like AI. It was that perfect. It looked like AI. You could just in a world and in a social media where you can't be sure what's real and what's not. It was real, and he split the post, and it was just absolutely magical sporting moment. Bloody love! Just so glad it was there.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the amazing thing. And I've watched it and watched it, and every time I watch it, I look for different people in the crowd, the reaction. Rory to the right. What I loved about Rory, the minute it left Jack's foot, Rory had his hands in the air. He knew. That's how confident he was in what Jack was doing. He knew it had gotten that way. There's a couple of young Derry supporters right behind Jack. You can see them. They're beating their hands off the signage, down by his side to try and distract him, which we'd do on the flip side. If it was a Derry man had been taking it, obviously you'd be doing your best to distract. But I think the most telling story of it all, and I think this is where Derry maybe thought their ship had sailed, their race had run. Conor Glass is standing in the goals, hanging onto the net, and he stands for about 10 seconds after the kick has gone over the bar. He is in total and utter disbelief. This is a man that has kicked some incredible scores in his lifetime, and he is in total and utter disbelief, I think, of what he had watched just fly over his head as well. And if that's within him, and I'm not saying that he took down the Derry team, but you can imagine the draining effect it must have had for them. And they did lead again during extra time, but they didn't have the belief to go and win it off the back of that. It's just one of them moments to say you keep watching it, and you pick up different images out of it every time you watch it.
Yeah, well, they did, and I suppose that picture paints 1,000 words. And it's actually, you're the second person who said that to me after that picture of Conor Glass just hanging in the net. It was kind of picture, like it kind of symbolised like a defeated man almost. But look, fair play to Derry. They're a great team. They came back. They were leading by 2 points. They were leading by a point with seconds to go. Joe Carney came in as a sub and fisted the ball over the bar, a bit like what Newbridge did against Scottstown in the championship, in the Ulster Championship, and Scottstown would still manage to come back and get the equal. I think it was Newbridge, or maybe it was, I'm trying to remember, but anyway, there were so many big moments in that Ulster Championship as well. But luckily, you had the men on the pitch that you could trust. But Monaghan just somehow found a way. And we've said that many, many times, but they somehow found a way. And I tell you, it wasn't simple, because you were a point down with 40-odd seconds to get up to win the game, and it did. And that's what I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, Conor McCarthy getting his hands on the ball. Ryan McInnesby coming in and taking the ball off Conor Glass underneath me there in the bottom corner over in the seated covered area in the bottom leg rounds. All big moments, all little moments, but moments all add up. That game of inches, and everything added up till we got to that position for Rory Beggan to get that free. But look, it was just an incredible sporting occasion. And you know what? It took us. This is what I thought about Down playing Armagh at the weekend. Down beat Donegal in a big upset, and they had about a 6-day turnaround. They probably weren't down from that high till about Wednesday or Thursday, and then they go out and play a team like Armagh. Very, very difficult to do. Like the emotional high, and now we have to come down and get ready to go back again. And we're still talking about a game that happened a few days ago, and we're just getting back to normal. So imagine what it was like for the guys who actually took part and experienced it in real life and real terms. And that's what players have to do. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do, but so that was something. And on a side issue, I just couldn't understand why the draw was made so early. I don't understand why, having won that game, the reward then is to be in a provincial final. But the teams who lost the provincial semi-finals can wait for 4 weeks and just prepare for Monaghan, like Mayo can prepare for Monaghan now for 4 weeks. I just want to get that off my chest. I just think it's a crazy thing to do. And in fact, the whole new format, I mean, Kerry and Donegal are playing now, and it should be an absolute massive game. But sure, if Donegal have already lost, they can lose again, and they're still there. So look, it's early days in this format, and maybe I'll be thinking it's great if it works out for us. But I have questions on it. But I won't. I don't want to rain on the parade of us reflecting on this game. But there are, like all great sporting events, there are more questions to be answered after it.
There is indeed. But it's interesting just in regards to the draw you made that, because in fairness, the Kerry manager, O'Connor, his first name escaped me at the second, but it'll come back to me. Jack O'Connor has noted that the draw being made, there's a bigger focus on Kerry and Donegal now than there will be on Kerry and Cork in a Munster final. And you just wonder in Kerry's own heads as well, will there be a bigger focus on them playing Donegal in an All-Ireland series than they will be playing Cork in a Munster final?
I just think the format has now really taken the sting out of the fact that, underdogs and teams, it's almost impossible for them to win the All-Ireland now, in my opinion, because it's stacked in the favour of very, very strong teams. I mean, bad and all is to beat teams once, beat them twice, and at this stage you have to beat them 3 times. I mean, that's where you're at with this. So, obviously, I just think that's incorrect. I think it's championship football. I think there should be a little bit. Jeopardy has been taken out of championship football. We know that with groups and different things and backdoors and qualifiers. But we are now getting to the point where you could realistically lose one, two games, and still be in the championship. I think it's 2, yeah, maybe. But I was just looking at it, it's quite confusing. Look, we'll give it the year. We'll see how it goes. But I just think it's kind of stacked the odds even more so for the likes of Kerry and Donegal and stuff like that. And obviously, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. But I don't know. I think upsets are good, and I think when an upset comes, it's bad enough. It's hard enough for a team to beat the odds once, but for a team to beat the odds twice or 3 times, it's almost impossible.
And that probably gives then more credence to a provincial championship now. And again, I know the paths through provincial championships can be a lot different for some teams than it is for others. Somebody, again, and not picking on Kerry, but they made a very interesting point in that Kerry only had to play effectively 2 games to get a home advantage in the All-Ireland draw, whereas Armagh had to play a preliminary round, a quarter-final, a semi-final, just to get to a final in their province to ensure that they got a home favourable draw then, a home draw in the All-Ireland series. So with the provincial championship being straight knockout, as you said, the door does open for that shock, that surprise. Like what Monaghan did produce last week, Derry would have been favourites going into that game. And imagine if there's a back door and Derry had a chance this weekend to make amends and come back in again, you wouldn't be taking them at the second time of asking.
Yeah, look, I suppose the Kerry thing, like, look, it's always as old as time, that, isn't it? Like the inequity of it. Like, but at the end of the day, Kerry, I wouldn't. They're going to be hard to beat no matter what way they're going to go. They were very impressive last year, but yeah, look, I think one chance is fair if you're going to go for that format. If you want to go back to Super 8, something similar, that's a different situation. But I think in a championship, I think you have to have some sort of jeopardy. I think the jeopardy has been dissolved a little bit. Look, I actually don't really care at the minute about the All-Ireland series. I think for Monaghan, it's 2015 since we last won the Ulster. Okay, 11 years. And Armagh haven't won it for even longer, believe it or not. This trophy has eluded them. This is a standalone fixture. Let's forget, we don't even worry. If for us, what we care about, and you're right about it, for certain teams being diluted. But I don't think it has for, say, likes of Roscommon. I don't think it has for the likes of Monaghan or Armagh, because, it really means something. This is a standalone fixture, and we want to win it so badly. And so do Armagh, because they just, for whatever reasons, they've won the All-Ireland, but they haven't won Ulster since. And that's going to be massive for them.
It certainly is. Just finally, Fergal, and then last one, obviously they were in an Ulster final since then. That one went to Croke Park. To be back in Clonus, back in St. Chearnock's Park, that's what the occasion is about. Even travelling around the county, and I covered a fair bit of it over the past few days, the flags are out, the bunting's going up, the good luck signs are appearing. There's just such a lift, there's such a buzz for the next week or a bit. And it was interesting, even just again, listening to Darren Hughes on your own podcast series there, talking about it, that the players, for some of these players, this will be whole new ground for them. I'm hoping they enjoy it. No doubt maybe it'll bring its own added, I don't want to say pressures, but it'll bring something on them. But they'll be well guided then by the likes of Jack McCarn, or Rory Beggan, or Ryan Wiley, those boys that have been there, done that then as well.
Look, it's what I'm delighted it's back in Clonus. The last time I was lucky enough to join Northern Sound and start commentating, we were in Croke Park for the Ulster final. We lost by a point in the end against, it was the COVID time. I'm just glad. Look, I always make the joke, I have 3 children and I'm married, and I have 5 great days, and one of them, I won't give you the order, but one of those days includes 2013, that Ulster final. And the Miners won that day as well. You were commentating, Sean. It was one of the best days of my life that day. It was a sunny day in Clonus. And I'll never forget it. And we were all, you get emotional anyway, but I was emotional. It was just an amazing day. So These players deserve to be in these games. They put in such a sacrifice. They entertain us. They put their lives on the line. Yes, they love the game, but by God, they give it everything. And they will absolutely relish playing in Clones, in an Ulster final, in an arena and on an occasion that they deserve to be in, because we cannot understand the work that they're putting in, and what they do, and what they give us as supporters of the county. Like, I mean, we talk about Kerry and we talk about all these successful teams. You wouldn't swap where you're from for life, for love nor money, because we're Monaghan people, and I'll tell you, as I said it in our own pod, we are Monaghan. There's an unquantifiable, intangible. You just can't measure it. The national media don't get it, but we get it. And we're going to get it, and we're going to understand it in a couple of weeks' time in the Ulster final. Can't wait for it.
I think Gabriel was giving you the shout maybe to do the halftime speeches in the dressing room, possibly maybe as well. Was he? He was offering it to you.
I don't know what. I think Churchill himself wouldn't have been able to do the speech he gave them at halftime in that Derry game, because it was such a turnaround. But no, can't wait. I'm buzzing for it, Sean, as are all of us. And I know, Monaghan are going to show up and show what they're made of, and whatever happens.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we will be looking forward to it. We sort of dedicated just this one, as I said, to reflect back, because it and people will say, oh, you're drawing it out now. You're making an awful lot out of it. But it was one of them games. It was just one of them moments. Where were you when that happened? I was jumping and lapping about in front of the big telly in the sister's house. I'm going to be honest with you. And it was great. It was
invited. You're not. They reckon you're not going to be invited back for the next confirmation. You were just completely out of control.
Absolutely not. And it's interesting, and I don't mind sharing this. There was some of the extended family from her husband's side that was down from Dublin, and they just couldn't get over how mad we were. I think they got, and you touched on it there. There's just something about when it comes to Monaghan and being involved and just living, breathing everything that the county does from a player's perspective, and it was one of them moments. And may we have more. That's the one thing we do look forward to, is that we certainly have more of those. But we will be looking forward, and I know you're going to be doing the same yourself as well, looking forward to it. And that'll all be next week. Plenty of time next week to do all of that. And don't forget, as always, you can check out more even on the podcast with us here on any of the platforms where your podcast may be. And we may as well give a mention for the one with Jack and Fergal there as well. We are Monaghan. Don't be afraid to give them boys a check in there as well.